Hi guys, welcome back for the second part of our video about how to study effectively. For today, we will be talking about two high utility strategies on how to study effectively before examination. So without further ado, let's get started. So last time, we talked about three low utility strategies, which are the following: annotation, highlighting and underlining, and rereading. However, based on the research that we gathered, these following utility strategies or low utility strategies are having a limited effect on the performance of the learners during examination. So right now, I'll be giving you now two of the most effective strategies to have a good performance or better performance during examination. So the following high utility strategies that we are going to talk about right now are the following. First, the practice testing, and the second one is the Feynman strategy or technique of studying. So for our first high utility strategy, which is practice testing. So practice testing, by the way, is a type of examination which is non-graded or not graded by your teacher or any evaluator. However, it is only you trying to check if you have truly understood the material that you're reading. But the question here is, how do we really create or start a practice testing? So basically, when you're going to read the material for your examination in any course, there will be a lot of questions in your mind on what could be the possible questions that you will be answering during the examination. Now basically, practice testing would allow you to anticipate or to foresee some of the questions that might come out during examination. So how will you do it? So basically, the first thing that you will do is to read the material. Then right after reading the material, you will be looking in the internet, on the internet, on what are the standardized questionnaires or examination papers relevant to your material. But there are also other techniques in which you are having the freedom or the liberty to create your own questions based on the material. Then right after that one is that you will be timing or you will be setting a time for you to answer each question. Probably the type of questions that you're going to answer could be false and true or false questions, multiple choice, or even essay questions. Those are the three common test types or types of tests that your teachers or your professors are giving you during examinations. So according to research, it says that on the basis of the evidence described above, we rate practice testing as having high utility. Testing effects have been demonstrated across an impressive range of practice test formats, kinds of materials, learners' age, outcome measures, and retention intervals. Thus, practice testing has broad applicability. So it means that the practice testing does not only limited into junior high school, senior high school, or even college and graduate students, but it could also be done by preschoolers or elementary students. So for as long as the appropriateness of the material is also considered during the practice test. As what I've said earlier, it could be standardized or it could be you creating your own anticipated questions about the material. So the research also continues. Practice testing is not particularly time-intensive relative to other techniques, and it can be implemented with minimal training. Finally, several studies have provided evidence for the efficacy of practice testing in representative educational contexts. So as what you have heard, practice testing does not really consume a longer time, but of course, it is your own pace that is being considered at the very beginning. So when you are going to answer the questions, of course, you are the one setting the time. And if ever the results could be not really that satisfactory, you can create another practice testing examinations for you to really get a satisfactory grade on your own prior to the examination day. So basically, if you are a college student or you are very studious in general, you can create your own questions before the examination day, so that at least you have already anticipated or you have already in mind what could be the possible questions that may come out during examination. So basically, it's a matter of understandability of the material. If you have really understood the material, then basically you could also answer questions, could either be in your practice test or even in the examination itself. So for our second high utility strategy, which is Feynman technique, we will be identifying the 4 steps that we need to follow for this technique. So let us start now with the first step that we need to consider in utilizing this particular technique. The first step is to identify or choose a subject to focus. Right after identifying, you will be writing or listing down all the questions that you have in your mind, the clarifications that you want to be answered, or any other concepts that you want to learn about the topic. With that, you are already guided on what could be the things that you will learn right after utilizing this technique. After identifying, we will proceed to the second step of this technique, which is teach it to a child. When you can teach this one to a child, it means that you are already ahead of the game. That means you are already confident enough that you have understood or you have answered already questions that you have in your mind or clarifications that you have already set prior to the teaching. However, make sure that you are not going to erase in your mind or get rid of the possibility that you may have things or concepts that you have not touched or you have not talked about during the teaching. That is now where we're going to proceed to the third step, which is identify the knowledge gaps. Okay? So basically, you are not an expert, you are not yet really knowledgeable about the topic, but instead you have already a schema or a prior knowledge because you have already read the material. But right after the teaching, you need to identify the knowledge gaps, which means this is now where the learning happens. You have already another questions that arise because after the teaching, you have found out that there are things that you have not explained to a kid or to the child. So basically, you will not left that one unanswered, but instead you need to explain that one next time, the moment that you are going to redo the teaching. So right after the acknowledging or identifying the knowledge gaps, you will proceed to the last or the fourth step of the process, which is organize, simplify, and tell a story. That is right. So since you have already experienced teaching it to a child, that's the time that you're going to organize. How are you going to study, learn, and teach that one again to another child or another recipient? After that one, you need to make sure that you simplify now all the terminologies or all the explanations that you have done during the first teaching. The priority of this technique is to simplify difficult or complicated explanation about a certain topic. Okay? Because Feynman believed that a learner learns if ever that he or she can simplify a very complicated explanation or a complicated discussion about a certain topic which is out of the person's expertise. So right after simplifying, you will now tell a story. The telling of the story is what you are going to teach to another kid or to another person, not the same level as yours. So those are the 4 steps that we need to consider every time that we utilize the Feynman technique. So let's have it again. First is that you need to choose the topic or the subject. Second is that you need to teach it to a child. Third is that you need to identify the knowledge gaps. And fourth is that you need to organize, simplify, and tell a story. So there you have it, guys. Those are the 2 high utility strategies that we may utilize or use every time that we are going to prepare for an examination. So those are now the low utility and high utility strategies that you may utilize every time you prepare for your examinations in the future. So this time, I will now be giving you general or generic ways or tips on how to study for your examination. So there are several tips that I want you to jot down on your paper if you have their paper and pens, so that you will be guided on what are these useful tips for your study or your preparation for your examination. Let us start now with our first tip. Our first tip is that you need to create your own planner or a to-do list so that you will be reminded on what are the things that you will be doing for that particular course or subject. So right after creating a plan or writing a to-do list, you need to really stay focused on your class. Okay, that is one of the problems right now of teachers as well as for learners, because their attention span is not really that longer. As far as I remember, there is only 8 seconds or 8-second attention span, or lesser than 8 seconds. So probably that is really one of the challenges that a student or even a teacher is facing every time that they're going to conduct a class. So stay focused. Sometimes it's really a mindset, or when you're going to really have the particular mindset that you really want to focus or you want to really learn something, then you may have this particular attention span longer than expected. So the next one is that you need to stay away from distractions. I know you have your friends with you every time you conduct classes or every time you study, you prefer a study group. However, as much as possible, if that particular circle of yours would not really help you to really learn something every time you study, so of course, get rid of them. I'm not saying that they are not really important, but sometimes it's really effective, or sometimes it's your initiative that would tell you that they are not really helping every time you study. So stay away from distractions. Make sure that you have your own time, your own pace of studying. Next one is that you need to really jot down notes. That's the next tip that I want to give you. Jot down notes. Sometimes, every time your teacher writes something on the board, most of your classmates or even you are just getting your phone, go to the camera, and then click, then capture the photo, right? However, based on study, it is not really effective for you just to click that particular camera setting and then there you have it, you have your notes in your phone. However, it is very much effective that you need to really jot down notes, create your own keywords, use mnemonics, or use any strategy that you know for writing so that you could really learn and grasp the information said by your teacher. For your information, by the way, it is not also effective that you need to verbatimly write whatever your teacher says. Meaning, if they say, this is what you're going to do, you will write in your notebook, this is what you're going to do. So that is not really effective. One thing that you need to know is that you need to create your own keywords, or just find keywords from that statement of your teacher. Next is that you need to ask clarifications. One thing that the students are not really doing is that they are not really asking clarifications every time their teacher asks from them. So for example, if your teacher tells you, do you have any question? Do you have anything in your mind that you want to ask? Then the students will just say, no ma'am, we don't have any question, because they want the class to end. However, it is really important that you really need to express and channel out your clarification so that you will really learn that particular concept of the subject. As what I said to my students before, sorry for the term, I don't want you to become stupid. So that is what really I tell my students. I don't want you to become stupid just to really settle for less and settle for knowing nothing. So I think it's really important for you as a student to really ask clarifications from your teachers if there is or there are clarifications in mind. Next is that you need to schedule your study time. Okay? There might be other students or other learners that they are very studious, that every time you see them in the class or in the campus, they are they're just studying, they're not doing anything, they're not doing any fun things. However, they're just going to focus in their books, they're very studious. But as an effective student, or should I say a student who really wants to learn something, you need to schedule when are you going to study. Okay, because you need to balance personal, social, and your academic life. So next thing is that you really need to ask help from your professors or your teachers about the things that are not answered. Okay? So it's just relevant to asking clarifications, but this time it's more personal. You go to your teacher, you approach your teacher and try to ask help from them because they are the experts or they are the knowledge provider. So next thing is that you need to review every evening. Okay? There are some that after the class they review, they don't have the time to have their brains or their minds put at rest. Okay? You need to remember your brain also gets tired. So basically, they need to sleep, they need to take a nap just like us. Okay, so after the class, if you're in a morning session, put at least an hour or several hours to take a rest. And then that's the time that you're going to review in the evening so that at least your brain or your mind is very fresh. Do not really impart a lot or numerous knowledge or information in your brain because it might explode because you are already information overloaded. Okay, so just have your time to at least take a rest, have your brain sleep, or at least do not really think about scholarly things or academic stuff because it's also your way to really rejuvenate the energy that you have exerted during your classes in the morning. So that would also be same thing when you are in the afternoon session because you are not going to study until midnight, but you're just going to study until 7:30 in the evening or 9:30 in the evening. So put at rest. So if you're going to review, you may review midnight, 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. because that's where your brain refreshes. Okay, so that's the time that your mind is so fresh, that your mind is really ready to grasp information. So that's how you're going to do it. So I think that's it. Those are now the things that I want to share to you about how to study effectively. If you have found this video effective, useful, and helpful for your future examinations, please do not forget to give this video a thumbs up and do not forget to leave a comment every time we are going to end a particular topic. So this has been Sir Noah and see you in the next video.